Something was wrong. The kind of wrong that settles over a plane before anyone even understands what they're looking at. 30,000 feet above the ground. The steady hum of engines. The soft glow of reading lights. The familiar rhythm of an ordinary flight. Then everything changed. A woman in first class dropped her phone. Her body stiffened. Her eyes rolled back. And before anyone could react, she collapsed into the aisle. Hard. Fast. Like a switch had been flipped. Gasps echoed through the cabin. Someone screamed. A child began to cry. Lead flight attendant Walton Dobbs rushed forward. He had handled turbulence, medical scares, and panicked passengers before. But this felt different. An off-duty surgeon stood frozen. Passengers were shouting conflicting advice. Fear spread from row to row. And then, in row 22, a quiet man slowly unbuckled his seatbelt. No one paid much attention to him at first. Why would they? He wasn't sitting in first class. He wasn't wearing a suit. He didn't look important. But sometimes the person everyone overlooks is exactly the person the moment needs. His name was Benny Higgs. 38 years old. Warehouse worker. Single father. Widower. 3 years earlier, Benny had held his wife's hand in a hospital room and watched her take her final breath. Her name was Claire. She had been the center of their little family. The planner. The encourager. The one who remembered birthdays and school projects, and where everything in the house belonged. When she died, Benny had to become both parents overnight. He didn't do it perfectly. But he showed up every day. For one reason. His son. 10-year-old Jesse Higgs. Jesse had his mother's eyes and his father's quiet strength. Every morning he watched his dad wake up tired and keep going anyway. He watched him pack lunches, pay bills, help with homework, and somehow keep life moving forward. Jesse never talked much about what he noticed. But he noticed everything. The trip to Phoenix had been a rare gift. A relative had left behind 2 airline tickets. Benny almost sold them. Money was always tight. But Jesse had never flown before. And Benny remembered something Claire used to say. Give him the world in whatever pieces you can. So they went. 1 suitcase. Airport burgers. Excitement over every airplane they saw. For a little while, life felt light. Then Wilma Davis collapsed. Wilma wasn't just another passenger. She was the CEO of a successful aviation technology company. Brilliant. Demanding. Always moving. Always working. Her assistant, Tracy Morris, knew better than anyone how exhausted she had become. For months, Wilma had been running on caffeine, determination, and almost no rest. Tracy had noticed the warning signs. The shaking hands. The skipped meals. The constant pressure. But Wilma never slowed down. Now she was unconscious on the cabin floor. Walton called for medical personnel. An off-duty surgeon named Dr. Elena Park stood up immediately. Then stopped. Fear locked her in place. 18 months earlier, she had lost a patient during surgery. She still carried the weight of that day. The knowledge. The guilt. The memory. Her body simply refused to move. Meanwhile, a businessman named Johnson Hen began shouting from business class. Someone do something! He demanded answers. Demanded action. Demanded control. But he wasn't helping. He was just making noise. Near the back of the plane, Jesse looked at his father. Dad, he said quietly. She needs help. Benny looked toward first class. Then he stood. Walton intercepted him. Sir, please return to your seat. I have emergency response training, Benny said calmly. I volunteered for 2 years. I've handled medical situations before. Johnson immediately objected. You're going to let some random passenger handle this? Benny glanced toward the frozen surgeon. Then where is the doctor? The question wasn't cruel. It was honest. And it landed hard. Walton hesitated. Then stepped aside. Benny moved forward. He knelt beside Wilma. Checked her airway. Checked her pulse. Observed her breathing. His voice remained steady. She's breathing. Everyone seemed to relax a little. Pulse is weak, but it's there. He gently repositioned her. Asked for a cold compress. Asked someone to loosen the scarf around her neck. Walton followed every instruction. Tracy dropped beside him, trembling. She hasn't eaten since yesterday, she said through tears. She keeps working. She never stops. Benny looked at her. You're helping her right now. The words were simple. But Tracy needed them. For the first time since Wilma collapsed, she took a breath. From his seat, Jesse watched everything. Not the panic. Not the chaos. His father. The way he stayed calm when everyone else was afraid. The way he focused on helping instead of impressing. The way he stepped forward when stepping forward would have been easier to avoid. Over the intercom, the captain announced that the crew was handling a medical situation. Behind the scenes, he asked whether an emergency descent was necessary. Walton looked at Benny. The quiet man from row 22. The man nobody had noticed before. We may have it under control, Walton replied. Moments later, Wilma moved. A finger twitched. Then her eyes opened. Confused. Disoriented. Alive. Tracy nearly cried with relief. Wilma looked around slowly. Then focused on Benny. Where am I? She whispered. You're on the plane, Benny said. Just take it easy. You're okay. For several seconds she simply stared at him. Not because she knew who he was. Because she didn't. And yet he was the first face she saw when she woke up. That was when Dr. Elena Park finally moved. She knelt beside Wilma and checked her condition. Her hands no longer shook. Her voice was steady. You did the right things, she told Benny. The compliment meant more than she realized. Not because Benny needed recognition, but because she had finally found the courage to step back into the role she had been avoiding. Sometimes helping someone else heals part of you too. Walton thanked Benny. Johnson stopped talking. In fact, Johnson became unusually quiet. He had spent years believing importance came from status. Titles. Money. Power. Priority boarding. The best seat. But when things truly mattered, none of those things had helped. The most valuable person on the plane had been sitting in row 22 wearing worn jeans and carrying a backpack. When Benny returned to his seat, Jesse was waiting. Is she okay? He asked. She will be. Jesse nodded. Then he rested his head against his father's shoulder. Benny wrapped an arm around him. Either of them spoke. Outside the window, clouds stretched endlessly across the sky. For the first time in a long while, Benny didn't feel invisible. The plane landed safely in Phoenix. Paramedics boarded immediately. After evaluating Wilma, they prepared to take her for further examination. As they wheeled her toward the front of the aircraft, she spotted Benny standing in the aisle. You! He stopped. I heard what you told Tracy. Benny looked confused. When she was blaming herself, Wilma continued. You told her she was helping. Benny shrugged. She was. Wilma studied him. Most people saw positions, titles, appearances, success. Yet somehow this stranger seemed to see people. Just people. Nothing more. Nothing less. What's your name? She asked. Benny Higgs. She nodded. Thank you, Benny Higgs. It wasn't the kind of thank you she gave often. Her assistant knew that. After Wilma disappeared down the jet bridge, Tracy lingered behind. She won't forget this, Tracy said. Neither would she. Neither would Walton. Neither would Dr. Park. Neither would Johnson. But the person who would remember it most was waiting beside Benny. Jesse. As father and son walked through the airport, Jesse slipped his hand into his dad's. You were brave. Benny smiled. I just helped. Jesse shook his head. No. There's a difference. Benny stopped. Jesse continued. Mom used to say brave people help even when they're scared. For a moment, Benny couldn't speak. He had spent years wondering whether he was doing enough. Whether he was failing in ways nobody could see. Whether Claire would be proud of the father he was becoming. Then his son looked up at him. And somehow, in that moment, the answer felt clearer. "You're going to be something special, Jesse." Jesse grinned. "We already are something, Dad." Benny laughed. A real laugh. The kind he hadn't heard from himself in a while. Together they walked into the Arizona sunlight. No reporters. No cameras. No headlines. Just a father and son continuing their journey. Most people will never know Benny Higgs existed. The world celebrates celebrities, executives, and people with influence. But every day there are ordinary people carrying extraordinary weight. Single parents. Grieving parents. Working parents. People who keep showing up even when life gives them every reason to quit. Benny was one of them. He didn't step forward because he wanted recognition. He stepped forward because someone needed help. That's what makes the story matter. Not the emergency. Not the airplane. Not the CEO. The choice. The decision to stand up when staying seated would have been easier. Jesse witnessed that choice. And children remember things like that. They remember how their parents treat people. How they respond to fear. How they carry themselves when nobody is watching. Long after the details of the flight fade away, Jesse will remember seeing his father unbuckle his seatbelt and move towards someone in need. That memory will stay with him. That memory is legacy. If this story meant something to you, let me know in the comments. And if you're a parent doing your best with more weight on your shoulders than most people realize, remember this. Your children are watching. They see more than you think. And the example you set today may become the strength they carry tomorrow.